What's up, guys? It's your boy Ruben, and we're going to go ahead and cover week 14. First thing we're going to go ahead and dive into, let's talk about what happened last night. Last night, the Steelers took an L to the Cincinnati Bengals, and it was a big surprise across the league, even to myself. And I have a theory about when I get into arguments with certain people, right? When it comes to picking games, I no matter how bad the team is, games that you should always watch out for are division rivalry games. We've seen it earlier this season where the Jets almost beat the Patriots. Now you saw Cincinnati beat the Steelers, who was just a few weeks ago 11-0. Now they're 11-3, having dropped three straight. And I called this a very long time ago. It's where I was wrong. The Steelers did end up making the playoffs, but I thoroughly expected the Steelers to, maybe thoroughly is too strong. I did not expect the Steelers to make the playoffs. Now, granted, I didn't necessarily look at the schedule and didn't realize they had the second easiest schedule when I made that determination. I expected them to maybe win, 8-9 games. Like they've done the last couple seasons actually, and just barely missed the playoffs because they were gonna kind of be in this limbo that they're in now with their inflated 11-3 record. And I thought the Ravens would be better than what they've shown, which that's not to say they're bad, but they gave up a pivotal game to the Steelers. They're sitting at 95. They gave up a pivotal game to the Steelers because they were wrecked by COVID, right? That you can't help but wonder where the Steelers would be at now had the Ravens won that game, because then the Ravens are 10-4, and I believe actually they would be tied in this scenario at 10-4. So it would make the division race interesting. I didn't even have originally the Ravens winning the division. I thought the Browns would win the division, which it looks like they're going to have the opportunity to do that. And then I thought ultimately that the Ravens were going to be in that second spot and just knocking the Steelers down a peg and leaving them just on the outs looking in. Again, didn't count on the easier schedule that the Steelers did have, but the Steelers have been flirting with losing for quite some time. Ever since the Browns game, all the games have been tight. They played several backup quarterbacks, and they almost lost to the Titans, almost lost to the Cowboys. They barely beat the ravaged by COVID Ravens. And so I saw this coming, and I bring it up because my partner in crime that I'm always debating, we go back and forth. He's a big Steelers fan, and he thinks I'm a hater, and it's not even that. I just tell him, I'm just telling it like I see it. I think Ben Roethlisberger's a problem. I don't think he's worth the investment. I had been a proponent of, when I evaluate teams, I put my GM hat on and I think about what would I do with that team. And I told him a year ago that I thought they should have got rid of Ben Roethlisberger. I think Ben Roethlisberger's done. Not that he's going to suck or anything like that, but I thought that ultimately you have a team that's close to being, if you have the right trigger man, close to being Super Bowl caliber, right? You have good pieces on the defense. You had an elite O-line the last couple of years. This year looks like they're taking a step back. But I was a proponent of trying to convince Ben Roethlisberger to retire, and start looking for your guy at quarterback so that you can plug him into a situation where you got a good O-line, good defense to support that rookie quarterback. Now you're in a spot where you're 11-3, limping into the playoffs. You can still lose the division. You went from 1 seed to now you can be the 5th seed. That's a problem. And Ben Roethlisberger doesn't look good right now. I don't know if it's his health. I don't know if it's the play calling, but my eyes tell me he doesn't look good, and this was something I counted on. Ben Roethlisberger has shown he can't stay healthy. He's up there in age. He hasn't kept himself in great shape. And then he had an elbow surgery. I fully expected him to fall apart at some point. Um, I still think he's going to have, some good games. He's Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, but again, Peyton Manning his last year won a Super Bowl, and he had good games, and he didn't look great generally throughout the season. He looks like he can't throw deep with accuracy anymore. Needless to say, the Steelers are in trouble, and now I feel like they've set themselves behind the eight ball, because what happens now is contracts are coming up. Ben has said he wants to come back. You got to pay Minka. You got to pay TJ. You got to figure out what to do about Bud Dupree. And while I don't think Bud Dupree is worth top flight money, I don't think he's a guy. You're seeing that. I think there's a drop off significant in talent from Bud Dupree to the next guy. I don't think those guys just grow on trees, right? So he's not TJ Watt, but he's not a guy that you could just write off and say, we'll just replace him. So you're stuck in that limbo. And I'm going to be interested to see what the Steelers do with that situation. Moving on, though, off of that, Rams got upset by the Jets. But I'm going to touch on a little bit more, excuse me, with that. I'm going to save that one for last for my Jaguars fans. So, Cowboys beat the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I actually fully expected them to lose this game. But, you know the saying, any given Sunday, right? The Cowboys went into this game without Ezekiel Elliott. Okay. We already know we've been ravaged by injuries. Offensive line, we're playing with Andy Dalton. We've got one of the worst defenses in recorded history, and I don't think it has anything to do with the talent. I've been campaigning all season that Mike Nolan needs to be fired. I don't know why they took a 4-3 team and decided they could flip them into a 3-4. All right. A few things about that. I'm not a fan of the 3-4 defense. That's not to say it doesn't work, but I like the way Seattle did it, the 0-2 Bucks did it. I like if you can have elite athletes and drop 7 and create pressure with the front 4. Even the most elite quarterbacks have issues with that if you have a good enough defense. If you can create pressure with 4 and drop 7, you're forcing small, tight windows on the quarterback. I'm more of a fan of that. The reason I'm not a big fan of the 3-4 is it requires you to blitz a lot. When you blitz a lot, if you're depending on the quarterback you're facing, right? Ultimately, I've always thought the 3-4 was a little gimmicky unless you have just a special unit full of athletes, right? And what I mean by it's a little gimmicky is, again, it requires you to blitz a lot. And when you blitz a lot, it requires you to basically try to confuse the opposing quarterback. And while that works throughout the season for the most part, when you get into the playoffs and you're playing Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, there's not a coverage they haven't seen. So what happens is you blitz, and when you blitz, the quarterback has to figure out where the blitz is coming from and understand what he has to do, right? And those quarterbacks know what to do in those situations. And when you blitz, you leave holes. And you got to drop people to cover that hole. At some point, you leave a hole that can't be covered, and the elite quarterbacks usually pick it apart. That's my problem with the 3-4 defense. The Steelers have been historically 3-4 defense, and they've, got all kinds of exotic blitz schemes and zone blitz schemes and stuff like that. And it's cool. If you have the players to run it, that's cool. It can work, right? Ultimately. But I think you need a special unit of athletes on that side of the ball to really be a Super Bowl contender with it. Fast forward to the Dallas Cowboys, right? They're trying to run a 3-4 defense with a 4-3 scheme. People in this scheme ran a 4-3 for the last several years. They didn't even draft for a 3-4 type of defense. And here's what I mean by that. DeMarcus Lawrence is a short, squatty guy with short arms. He's not a 3-4 defensive end. And he's not athletic enough to be a outside pass rushing linebacker, right? That's a problem. Alden Smith fits a 3-4, but he's a million years old. We did not get Alden Smith to try to build the defense around him. Leighton Vander Esch, I think over time he can learn to play it. Same with Jalen Smith. But you can tell this isn't a scheme that fits them. You can literally see them not playing as fast because they're thinking so much. You can see the hesitation, right? Whereas when they were in the 4-3, it was one guy's covering. They understood the zones they were in. Like, there's too many moving parts in the 3-4 for those guys that you just thrusted upon them this season. And combine that with what might be the most important position in a 3-4 is your nose guard. Big, fat, burly guy in the middle of that defense, because now instead of 4 linemen, you have 3. So you need that guy to literally take up 2 blockers, if not 3, if they can figure that out. It's a 2-gapping scheme. 3 linemen, all 3 linemen have to hold the point with whoever's blocking them, and basically you're responsible for both sides of the lineman. Those are the gaps. We don't have players built for that. We drafted, Neville Gallimore, and I'm high on him. But if they put him in a 4-3, I think you could be looking at a Gerald McCoy type of talent. I can't wait to see what they do next year. They again won the game. I didn't expect them to win it, and now we're in this. I personally am in this weird place because I know a lot of Cowboys fans understand where I'm coming from, but I know a lot of guys that their hearts just set on, being a Cowboy and beating our opponents and yada yada. I get that, but we're not going to the Super Bowl, guys, and I have zero interest in being we're already a laughing stock this year based on how we've looked. I have no interest in being in a playoff game at home, hosting, who knows, Green Bay, the Saints, Tampa Bay. I have zero interest in being in a playoff game and getting blown out so we can continue being a laughing stock and losing our draft position when I think they're picking in the top 10 right now. I'd rather them lose out, to be honest with you. But I'm in that weird spot because our next 2 games are against division opponents, and I hate to give those guys fodder to feel good about themselves. At this point, hey, it is what it is. If they win, great. If they lose, great. I'm just watching. To be honest with you, I'm ready for next year. I don't like what I'm seeing. The defense is just historically bad. And there's nothing to judge the offense off of because it's not even the offense we run, considering all the injuries. This NFL season sucks, people, for certain fans, of course. So let's move on. Jags fans, we have the number 1 draft pick as long as they continue to lose out. That is reason for applause. Let me tell you why. I know I've stated before, I don't love Trevor Lawrence the way everybody does, and I still don't. But I acknowledge he is, at this point, by far the number 1 consensus pick. He's the closest in this draft to a sure thing. I was ready to, and again, I'm going to reserve the right to change my mind. I'm going to be watching the college football playoffs very closely this next weekend coming up because I was kind of ready to give the mantle to Justin Fields. But Justin Fields has had a couple of bad games, not to mention that they haven't played but 6 games. But in 2 of those games, he's had multi-interception games. They are undefeated, but Justin Fields hasn't done enough to make me give him the mantle over Trevor Lawrence, who is the prize. So I'd rather get the prize unless Justin Fields completely torches everybody and wins the championship. Uh, it's Trevor Lawrence or bust for us right now. So, with that being said, how did this happen? This happened because the Jets beat the Rams. Yes, people, the Rams lost to the winless Jets. I couldn't believe it. However, I'm seeing a lot of the things that I stated in my the Rams are imploding video coming to fruition when it comes to the Rams. They have lost all faith in Jared Goff. I thought they played that game very conservative, especially when it was getting out of hand, instead of letting kind of Jared Goff, turning him loose. I kind of felt like it was, hey, it's still early. We're playing the Jets, run, run, run. And the Jets did an excellent job at bottling up the run and putting them in situations where Jared Goff had to throw. And this is where the problem began. Once he had to throw, they couldn't figure out how to beat the Jets until basically the second half. It was 17-0. And then, mind you, the Jets didn't even play the end of the half correctly. So this is why Adam Gase probably should get fired, because all they had to do was run clock and they go into the half 17-0. And they didn't run the clock and gave the Rams an opportunity, and from which they got all the way down to the goal line at the end of the first half, and they were at least able to bring it to 17-3. Oh, it's only 3 points, I understand, right? But in that situation, you can't look at it like it's only 3 points. It was a 3-possession game, and that field goal that they gave up at the end of the half cut it to a 2-possession game. At the end of the game, the Rams had an opportunity to tie or win the game. Now, again, the Jets won, but you got to think about, had you made the right calls at the end of the first half, you're not even in the situation where the Rams could win the game at the end of the game. So congrats to the Jets. Way to drop to number 2. I'm not sure if you're the GM of the Jets, you necessarily want the number 1 pick, because I'm not sure you give up on Sam Darnold at this point yet, because they've done nothing to support him. He's got a horrible O-line. They finally got a good left tackle in Mekhi Becton out of this draft, but their O-line has been atrocious. There's no weapons there, no running back that you could really lean on. The defense has been historically bad as well. He's had no support, so there's no way to judge whether you have something in Sam Darnold or not. So why pick up Trevor Lawrence and then just cut bait on your last number 1 pick quarterback when you have so many holes everywhere else? And then if you trade the pick for buku picks, which I don't know who would do it, but we've seen it happen in the past, your fan base is going to hate you for it. So it's probably better that they fell to 2. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting draft. We also read, Jags fans, that Doug Marrone is trying to win the game, and I know a lot of people groan to that, but there's really no reason that the Jaguars should even be able to win the next 2 games. They play the Bears, who are a superior team to the Jaguars. They play the Colts, who are a superior team to the Jaguars. And I know a lot of people think, well, we beat the Colts. Why can't we beat them again? And I did a video where I said, if we're being honest, the Colts should have beat the Jaguars. They left a lot of points on the board. They went for it on 4th down, I think 2-3 times, and didn't convert, and those turned into points for the Jaguars. On top of that, they turned the ball over with a couple picks. So my eye test saw the Colts were a better team, but the Jaguars did what they had to do and converted in key situations to steal that game. The Bears game scares me a little bit because they have Mitchell Trubisky, who's basically Blake Bortles 2.0, so you never know with that. But with Khalil Mack coming into town and what I just saw against the Ravens, guys, there's really no reason for them to win another game this season. And I'm ready to see what's up in the draft coming up. Trevor Lawrence, welcome to Jacksonville. I'm ready to see what that other first-round pick and all the other picks are. And a little bit of news. I heard we are interviewing Louis Riddick. I like Louis Riddick as a personality. I like a lot of things that come out of his mouth. I don't know if that makes him qualified for the job, but the easiest thing you can do is draft Trevor Lawrence, and then this roster really does have more talent than the record would suggest. So, with that being said, guys, peace out. Leave questions. Please support, subscribe, like. I'm going to leave a link in the description. Check it out, and peace out.